All right, that was soothing. What's up, everybody? We got ourselves a little classical guitar version of the X Files theme today. Last week we did the. Oh no, last week we didn't do any because what happened last week? I forgot. Other than the internet sucked and we could barely get a word in without cutting out. I think it was the week before we had the heavy metal version. Oh, speaking of the internet sucks, there goes my friend Pete. Guys, welcome to Third World Country style. I don't know what's up, but we've been having mega internet issues. I apologize in advance. Fortunately, on Monday, everything was fine. So, if anybody wants to know a little bit about our lives down here in Brazil, Monday is the day to check it out. But today we're talking, and when Pete comes back, he will join me in the conversation. Episodes 13 through 18 of the X Files season 2. It's our weekly review show. We had to do it last week on a Monday because I had to do something on a Thursday. And the week before that, I think I fell asleep. That's what it was. Like, I was so tired. I just slept and I woke up. It was like 11 p.m. down here. I was like, I'm not doing this. And by the way, that little intro that you listened was by a guy named Evan Handyside. You can check him out on YouTube. And I believe that's his YouTube channel right there, youtube.com/user/Evan Lessons. And it's pretty cool. On the actual video, like below his video, you can see the tabs that he's using if you ever want to venture to play the X Files theme on your classical guitar. And unfortunately, last week, maybe it was good that the internet was bad last week because Pete and I didn't have a very good time with the bunch of episodes before this one, which were episodes, I guess, 7 through 12. Not the best bunch. And when you have a 24 episode season, yeah, that's going to happen. Not as bad as the bad bunch from season 1, in my opinion. I think season 1 is has way more duds and is way slower. The show's still just trying to figure out what it wants to be all the time. So it kind of lends itself to that. Shout out to my friend Justin, who was supposed to be on this podcast with us since the beginning, but he didn't get around to watching the episodes. He finally did watch the first 12, and he was like, yeah, he thought it was all right. He did call the show overrated, which I took umbrage at, and I kind of had to tell him, nah, X Files is anything but overrated, but it takes a while to get going. I mean, even in first run, I think it only became like the X Files that everybody knows and loves about season 3 or so. And I'm actually on season 3, and it's like, wow, this is like X Files at its peak, or going towards its peak. So a lot of good stuff happening in season 3. But season 2 has some really good stuff. Stronger than season 1. In this little bunch of episodes has some real nice nuggets. But before we get there, looks like we really won't be getting any more X Files. I mean, Gillian Anderson has said this a bunch of times, but I guess fans just kind of hold out, and kind of hope that one day she will change her mind. But that time's probably not going to come anytime soon. Gillian Anderson confirmed she will not be returning as Dana Scully in the X Files. Now, I did read an article from 2018, and I just got rid of everything on the screen. Where she goes into a little bit more in depth as to why it is that she doesn't want to return to the X Files. And I know a lot of fans like to say that it's because of the storyline, and it wasn't. One second, guys. Let me just do something here. Uh, okay, this is what I want. Because it was the storylines were really working for her, and it's true. I mean, I think that they really wrote Scully pretty badly for towards the end of the show, let's say. But the way she explained it seems a little bit more logical. It was just the fact that they invited her back for season 10, and she was like, okay, why not? I mean, it's been a long time since I've revisited this character. And season 10 felt like the writers were just getting their feet wet. And then she was like, okay, maybe we can do one more season just to say now we got it, we shook out the cobwebs and let's really go for it. But she didn't think that the thought, she didn't think that the thought was to actually just start a new series. I mean, she didn't want to really commit months of her life to, like, oh my God, I'm now going to be in the X Files for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And for me, that makes a little bit more sense, logically. Not that she was upset with how they were writing her character and this and that and the third. Although, yes, I do think that they made some mistakes with the Scully character towards the end, the last 3 or 4 seasons of the show. That includes season 11. But yeah, there's Pete. He's back. By the way, Pete, Justin, did you know Justin actually watched the first 12 episodes of the X Files? He did it in secret, but he wasn't. He was underwhelmed a little bit, but he wants to keep watching it. Because I told him he gotta hold on with shows like this. Shows like this don't hit the floor running. They kind of take a while to really figure out what they want. Although I think the first 3 episodes, right? Pilot's okay, but Deep Throat and Squeeze are really good, and then after that, I think it does kind of it's good. You know, it's better than half of the stuff or more that was out at the time. But if you're comparing it to stuff that's out now, it's just kind of good. It's not great. The first 12 episodes, there's a few moments here and there of greatness, but I really think the X Files starts getting into great mode right where we are, season 3. I mean, that's where things really, the machine is just really well oiled and things go down. So no more for Jillian, but never say never. I, I personally would love to have just I don't know, 2 hour, kind of mini, even if it's a TV movie, just to tie up all the loose ends and just kind of say goodbye in the best way possible. Because that's the thing that's infuriating. Not that Jillian's left the show, but that they just left us hanging again. So, anyway, that's the news section for today. And the episodes we'll be looking at, we're going to see Irresistible, Die Hand der Verlats, Fresh Bones, Colony, and I believe that's it. Although I feel like I missed one there in all of this, but I guess that's 6 episodes. No, that's only 4. Well, we'll figure out as we get along. So we begin our X-Files review with the episode Irresistible. Okay, it's the 13th episode of the second season. It's written by Chris Carter, directed by David Nutter, a mortuary worker who collects hair and fingernails from dead bodies, begins to kill to expand on his collection, and eventually he sets his sights on Scully. And one thing that I really appreciated about this episode was the beginning, because it plays Gymnopédie, number 1 by Eric Sachi. This is the classical music piece that's playing in the beginning. Really lovely piece at the funeral. I enjoyed this one. I don't know, Pete, are you there? I see you in the broadcast studio, but I don't know if you are actually in. Okay. But when you're in, just pop in so I know you can hear me and your microphone is working and etc. So this episode for me, sometimes the X File does these kind of homages too. This one felt like a little bit of an homage to Psycho, just the way that this the main villain was in this episode. He had a little bit of an Anthony Perkins vibe. He's played by Nick Shinland. Is that how you pronounce his name? He plays Donald Faster, and so he follows these girls around, and he wants to kind of get their hair, and he's obsessed with their girliness. Takes them home, kills them, and it's a pretty basic story as far as that. Just like a wacky serial killer, real freaky ass serial killer, one of the more memorable ones in the series. There is this kind of paranormal aspect that Chris Carter tries to put in there, and it does kind of scare you when you see it, where every once in a while when you see this guy, he turns into a like a satanic demon or something like that, which is kind of cool, except they don't really go all the way in and exactly explain what that is, or if that's just Chris Carter trying to say someone like this is representative of a Satan type creature. Not exactly sure what that was about, but it does scare the bejesus out of you. At least it scared it out of me when I was watching it, because I wasn't expecting it. Because he's walking and all of a sudden you see like this demon. And you're like, oh shit. Some interesting stuff with this episode is that Scully, and we were just talking about writing the Scully character. And maybe this is one moment where you're like, huh, where did that come from? Because Scully's seen so much and she's so tough. But then for whatever reason, in this episode, she just can't take it. And she's trying to swallow her pride and prove that. Oh, there's Pete again. And she's trying to swallow her pride and kind of prove to Mulder and the boys that, hey, I'm tough, but really she's not as tough as it seems. There's a nice scene in the psychologist's office where you kind of get this sense that, okay, the reason she's having these problems is because of her abduction in the past. So maybe that's Chris Carter just trying to tie in the effects that her abduction would have had with just playing tricks with her mind. But at the same time, it kind of feels like it's coming out of nowhere. And, she does get kidnapped at the end by the killer again. She does tend to get caught by the crazy killers a lot. Uh, uh, Mulder tends to get caught by the U.S. government agents because he's out there looking for aliens. That's his thing. And then she has to save his ass. But with Scully, it's she gets kidnapped or allows killers into her house by mistake, and then she gets tied up, and then Mulder has to save her ass. That's usually the way that it works between these two. So, I mean, I'm not sure I like that because we had seen it already a couple times before. Just like with Mulder, it tends to get boring after a while when he just always gets caught by the government agents. But it is what it is. Overall, I gave it a 4.5, though. I think it's a pretty strong episode. I love the villain. Freaky. Again, he's got this Anthony Perkins vibe to him. Kind of an homage to Psycho, but just amped up for the X Files as things usually are. Is Pete there? No, he's not. He's having mega issues with his internet, guys. So, what I'm going to do. Oh, I wish you were here though, because the next couple episodes are really good. Is move ahead, and if he can't make it, I don't know what we'll do, but we can just go back and talk about some of these episodes and let him give his thoughts on them. By the way, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for the uh, new subscribers to the channel. We finally hit 200 subscribers, which is really cool. Actually, 201 subscribers, which is really nice. I got a new subscriber at some point this week. That's really nice. We do these little podcasts just as labors of love. We're not making any money out of it. We're not gaining anything from it professionally other than just having some fun online with you guys. We love the comments. We love to know that there are folks watching. So please comment below, like the video, share it, and have some fun with the X Files. Anyway, hopefully Pete will be back because this next episode is so cool. One of my favorites. Remember it from first run. One of the best, most memorable X Files villains. Oh, there he is. Pete, you there?
Yeah, I just got back. Don't know for how long. This has been my day, unfortunately.
I know. Well, Pete, talk a little bit about Irresistible then before we move ahead. While you're there.
Yeah, I can hear you. Not very clearly, though.
Talk about Irresistible if you can while you still got internet.
Yeah, I liked it. It was a rare episode that showed Mulder and Scully doing regular FBI stuff. And it was really icky, too. It kind of had an Ed Gein type quality to it. Apparently, they originally wanted the villain to be a necrophiliac, but Fox, the network that is, nixed that, said it was too edgy. So he just became this fetishist who collects shit off of dead bodies, like Ed Gein, and escalated it, and targets Scully. And that was all good. The only thing that I didn't really like about it is that he seems unusually bothered by it. I'm not really sure what her trip was, why this bothered her so much. Like, it would bother most people, but, she's a forensic scientist, she's supposed to be made of tougher stuff after all the stuff that she's seen. You'd think she'd be a bit more thick-skinned about it.
I agreed. I mentioned that while you were coming in and out of internet glory, although it's really bad, your connection, you're like really cutting out. But anyway, oh, we got a viewer. Hi guys. But I mentioned the same thing, is that it just came out of nowhere, and it's the beginning of many times when we question, especially Chris Carter. This is a episode written by Chris Carter. Chris Carter's decisions when it comes to the Scully character. It's like, where did that come out of? And they kind of tried, I don't know if it's this episode or a little bit further, where they kind of, she actually goes to the psychologist. I think her sister even gets her to do like some hypnotherapy or something. They try to connect this trauma to the fact that she was abducted, but kind of
But the thing is, when they have that therapy scene, she doesn't mention her abduction. She just mentions the case is bothering her.
Exactly. So it doesn't. I don't think it's kind of a tenuous connection. It's not a really great connection, and it weakens her character because she's tough as balls. She's seen so much already in a season and a half more or less of X Files. You would think that this wouldn't be that rough compared to some of the stuff she has seen before. So I don't get it. I think it's the only weak part of this episode, but I still gave it a 4.5. I think it's a really strong episode, mainly for the villain. Real creepy villain. He's got that psycho vibe going on.
Yeah, it's nice to see that we can actually do stuff with these characters that doesn't involve the supernatural and paranormal, but it's still scary.
It's still scary. And did you get that whole, like, because there is sort of a paranormal twist in this where every once in a while he turns into a demon. Like his even when he's attacking Scully at the end, like she sees this demon. And I couldn't tell if that was supposed to be really he's got some weird supernatural thing, or if it was Chris Carter just trying to, paint by the numbers for us and say, look, this guy is so bad, he's like a demon. I don't know. I don't think that needed to be added, especially since they didn't really get into it. It did scare the
Right.
shit out of me when I saw it, though. But I don't know what you thought of that.
I didn't actually catch that, or if I did, I've forgotten it.
Well, it happens real quick. I think the first time you see it is when they're in the what do you call that? The necro is it necrotorium? What's the word?
Mortuary. Mortuary.
Mortuary. Yeah, mortuary. I'm thinking some other weird shit. Yeah, when they're in the mortuary and he's talking to the guy, and then as the guy is walking, he sees a demon. Like, and it shakes him to the core. He's like, "What the fuck?" And then when he walks into the light, it's the psycho dude. So it's there, but they didn't really dig into it, so I didn't really get why even put that in there if you're not gonna dig deeper, unless again, well, if Chris Carter was going for symbolism, I think he needs to take some classes on subtlety when it comes to symbolism. But anyhow, let's move to the next episode. I'm glad you're back. I hope you stay back because this is one of the best. Die Hand, die Verletz, the hand that wounds. Episode 14 of The X Files. As I was saying before Pete came back, I remember watching this one first run and I loved it because this was right around the time I was in high school and we all thought our teachers were secret aliens or satanic worshippers on the side. The Faculty came out around this time too, which is a great little movie. 17.7 million viewers, written by Glenn Morgan, James Wong, and directed by Kim Manners, all-star Kim Manners. I think this is the first one by Kim Manners. Um, I don't remember us talking Kim Manners before, but one of the great X Files directors. Rest in peace. He died in 2009. But I think, yeah, this is his first episode. Die Hand, die Verletz, and he also directed Humbug, another one of my absolute favorite episodes from season 2. So anyway, as long as Pete's here, I'm gonna let him go first. What are your thoughts on this episode, Peter? And by the way, if you're listening, leave your comments below. Tell us what your favorite episodes from season 2 are from this batch, which are episodes 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Let us know. Pete got knocked out again. We're going to get him in piecemeal. So I will talk about this episode. It's Satanic Teachers. After teenagers ritualistically murdered in a small town, Mulder and Scully are caught up in a secret occult practice within the local PTA. And a substitute teacher with odd powers, Mrs. Paddock, a scary bitch. Oh man, oh man. So, the cool thing about the X Files is obviously made for adults. Whoops. But they knew there were a lot of teenagers watching. They knew this was right down our alley. So I love the episodes where they really try to dig into the fears of teenagers and the thoughts that we had, in school, in high school. We've all had these teachers that just scared the shit out of us, and we thought, where did they come from? Do they even have a house to go to after? I remember I had a teacher like this in third grade. Oh my God, scary, scary, scary. But yeah, we got Mrs. Paddock. This is also the beginning for me of the wryness coming into the show. I mean, Mulder is already very wry, but the mood itself, where it's almost like Mulder and Scully, like, oh, we've seen a whole lot of shit. this is just like another day in the neighborhood. And it's where the comedy aspect of the show starts to sprinkle in slowly, and it's what for me made the show so good moving on to the later seasons until it got too funny. It became like almost a self-parody. But when the show was able to laugh at itself, like this scene right here that I got on the slide where the frogs, like, oh, there's nothing that weird around here, and then boom, uh we get frogs falling from the sky. I love a few things about this show. One is how the satanic folks act like they want to protect children. So, again, very subtle jab at maybe the Christian right, that wants to protect children, but maybe they actually end up screwing with their heads. Just that here they use the satanic folks. The moving pig, when they're doing the dissection of the pig in the laboratory, oh my God, how much trauma did we have as high school students trying to dissect the pig? But at the same time, this harkens back to, was it Friday? Not Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Is it 3 or 4 where they're in the high school and then, like, all the medical objects start moving and stuff like that. The girl turns into a cockroach and stuff. So I love that. Um, Also, it deals with some heavy stuff. I mean, it deals with possible sexual assault of a 4-year-old, child murder. Shannon kills herself. One of the girls uh, cuts her own wrist. I mean, it's heavy, heavy, heavy stuff amidst the kind of weirdness and even some of the comedy aspect of the show. Um, the snake coming down to digest the dude. There's a snake that eats a whole human being. And oh, and the internet, when they're researching stuff, looks like a bio screen, which is pretty funny if you're looking back at it. That's the only thing that kind of dates this episode a lot. And yeah, and Mrs. Paddock, she has heart and eyes in her drawer. How does she get manage to do that? I don't know. But it's a morality tale in the end. In the end, Mrs. Paddock is almost like the hero of the story, because she's letting these satanic worshippers know that, look, you guys don't know what you're messing with. And you conjured up the devil. Here she is. So, take care of your shit. Because in the end, she ends up getting rid of all of them. She kills. Well, that's kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but she she's menacing. But in the end, she's just trying to make sure y'all doing this thing right. So I like how they were able to tell a story kind of criticizing some of the Christian right in these very religious folk that are very conservative, but they use Satanism as the gateway to that. And Miss Paddock would be almost like as if Jesus came down and was like, you guys ain't doing this right, and here's what's going to happen because of that. So great episode on many, many levels. But Miss Paddock, of course, is the star of the show. What? Oh, Pete's trying. He wasn't there for a second. I was about to ask him, what did you think, Pete? But then he got knocked out again. Oh, sucks, guys. For Pete, he's just having really crappy internet. Make sure you pay your internet, by the way, because I did realize I hadn't paid January by mistake, and that's why my internet was a little slow. But ever since then, it's been a little better, but it's still kind of crappy nonetheless. There he is. All right, Pete, you're in. You're piecemeal. It's piecemeal Pete. We're getting him in bits and pieces. Pete, tell
Yeah.
us, what do you think of this episode here? The Hand
Uh,
der Verlangt.
season 2 the whole series.
Oh, we can't hear what you're saying. By the way, talk to your landlord, man. Maybe somebody's jamming the signal or something. Something's happening because the internet's never been this bad. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we can barely, we'll hear like one word out of 10 that are coming out. Pete, do you got data on your phone? Try to connect via your phone. There he is. He is connecting via his phone. See if you can use your regular cell phone data
It
on your
won't
phone.
matter. I don't have any regular cell phone data. It's just the
Oh.
Wi-Fi that I'm. Yeah.
Oh, it's better now. Just don't move from where you are. Hopefully you're like in a pocket or something. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
No. Yeah. So I don't know. The supernatural elements of this are really freaky, and there's just something about it when it's presented the right way that just triggers people. It's a lot of tropes, but they're very effective tropes. Like here we see the frogs raining. We had like the heart in the desk, and this bitch was just evil. Like she just radiated like the pure biblical sense of evil. So yeah, it was just really creepy occult shit, and there was kind of an underlying theme there about the hypocrisy of religion, how the satanic school teachers weren't really Satanists; they were just kind of casual, and then they're in a situation where they actually have to deal with the consequences of their religion, and they're like, "Oh shit, this works."
Exactly. That's what I liked about it. It's like they were able to make a criticism of those insane, religious freaks. And I mean that in the sense of like the extremist guys, not your regular old run of the mill religious folks. I have plenty of folks that are Christian and Muslim, whatever, and they're fine. They operate fine in society. But the insane folks and the hypocrisy of it, and it's like, okay, now it's time for some reckoning. What are you really doing with yourselves? Because the devil's come to town. And yeah, this bitch is amazing. Great, 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 great performance by the way, we should give her a shout out. Susan Blomiart is the actress who played this. And man, they deal with some really heavy themes too, Pete, like child abuse and uh, teenage suicide, and there's a whole lot of stuff that shows up in this episode. But she's been in a bunch of stuff. This lady, she's a great little character actress. Last movie she was in is John Wick, and then she was in The Kitchen and a whole bunch of. But in television, she's done a whole lot. ER, Family Law, Law and Order, The Sopranos. She was in The Sopranos as Betty Wolf, 2 episodes. Boardwalk Empire, The Blacklist, Madoff, Mozart in the Jungle. She's all over the place. Real talented actress. So definitely dig her. So far, guys, compared to last week, the bunch from last week, this week is much, much stronger as far as the bunch of episodes. We do get to Fresh Bones, and because of Fresh Bones, we got to go back to our Vulture article, and let's see what the Vulture article has to say about it, because it's definitely in their shit list of this episode offends me. And it says here that, can we all just agree to a permanent moratorium on the use of voodoo as a plot device in all mainstream, predominantly white pop culture? I mean, seriously, Never mind that the term is derived from Vaudon, an actual Afro-Caribbean religion evolved from the forced conversion of slaves to Christianity, and not a magical revenge tactic employed by black people. The idea that Haitian refugees being detained and abused by the US military could curse those Marines into delusions and suicide might sound like a good cautionary tale in theory. It's revenge after all. But in reality, it only serves to further stigmatize those Haitian refugees and black people in general, if we're being really real here. Chester Bonaparte, a tween who seems responsible for the curses, plays the role of an elf-like trickster and then a black cat, which of course doesn't do much to humanize anyone, the way a story about white American cruelty might seek to do in theory. See, we've always wanted to turn non white immigrants and refugees into scary other to be avoided at all costs. Well, that's what they thought about it. I will say this, not my favorite episode. Um, Kind of lumbers along a little bit. Okay. I don't mind the voodoo aspects. X Files deals with uh, occult stuff all the time, and I guess you could put voodoo into the occult category as far as not being mainstream religion. So not to disparage anybody that does practice voodoo. And I do have some friends from Haiti, including my friend Renee. And we do have more frogs in this episode. And I thought that the revenge plot made sense, okay? The voodoo priest wants to kill Marines who hold them as refugees. We do have a little bit of Mr. X in this episode, who says that the Statue of Liberty is on vacation. But I just thought it was kind of a lumbering episode. It's heavy on atmosphere, but drags. Um, and also, I didn't really get how Mulder and Scully got into Wharton's office. Wharton is the guy who is the head of this refugee camp. And then we find out later that he was actually in Haiti, I guess, and he learned how to do voodoo with them. The X Files does that again in another episode that we'll look at. I think it's the one that Pete like called Small Town or something like that, where they're dealing with chicken and stuff. Uh, where they use that same thing again, where in the end it's the white guy that just happened to have learned some magic from indigenous folk or black folk. So there's a little bit of that. Scully has a headache, so she misses the action because she gets hit in the head by something. Um, and I just felt the episode was a little bit all over the place. By the way, let's see who wrote this episode, what was going on with it. This one premiered in February 3rd. 17 million viewers. Howard Gordon wrote it. Rob Bowman directed. After several murders occur within a Haitian refugee camp, Mulder and Scully are caught in the middle of a secret battle involving a voodoo priest and the camp commander. So it's okay. Like the voodoo stuff didn't bother me that much. Now it's just, I think I've said this to Pete before. It does suck though that X Files isn't the most diverse show. It gets a little bit better as it goes along. So when we do have some black representation, it's all like the crazy voodoo people. But it is what the fuck it is. It's a show from the '90s. It is what it is. But it could have been written a little bit better. I just didn't. For me, my issues were not the voodoo, just the writing. It just kind of dragged. What are your thoughts on this one, Pete? Fresh Bones. Let's see. He was here a second ago. No, now he's gone. Just like that. Voodoo magic. Voodoo magic. Um, but yeah, just to that point, there's definitely a trope in Hollywood, and if anybody wants to watch a really good documentary that is on Shutter, it's called "The History Horror Noir: The History of Blacks in Horror Movies." And they do talk about this whole trope that they call the magical Negro. Like whenever a black person shows up in a horror show or movie, they're usually imbued with these magical powers, whether they're a voodoo priestess or or they're just they're psychic. Think Ghost maybe with Whoopi Goldberg's character. Um, they and whatever magical power they have is used to somehow help the white protagonist. So it's a trope. It's definitely a trope that's out there. So I thought that this Vulture article was mainly bullshit, but they have a mini point with this one. Go ahead, Pete. Talk what you
Yeah, I
think.
wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about this one. Played on a bit too many stereotypes. The voodoo stuff. Where these refugees came from, and why they're stationed in North Carolina. We really don't get any story as to why that's going on. And apparently, the reason is they want to do story in Haiti, but they couldn't get
They wanted to do the story in Haiti, but they probably just didn't have the budget for it.
Vancouver.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit there, brother. We're getting piecemeal Pete, but I'm glad when he does come in. But it seems like we've lost the connection a little bit. He's there, but and he's probably talking, but the connection. He's probably cursing the gods. You gotta do some voodoo magic on that internet, Pete. Although I will say this, much better internet where you live now than where you lived before. I will give you that much. Uh, but I suggest you talk to your landlord and be like, what the fuck is up? Because did you all pay the internet bill? Because this is just outrageous. And you gotta work. Pete works online, so he needs to have good internet. Well, we will go back to that episode if you want to say. Oh no, he's back. Let's see. You got any more to say about this episode? Because you're starting, getting warmed up.
Yeah, yeah. Just that it wasn't a bad episode, but it had a few too many.
Yeah, it had its moments. It had its
Like,
moments, but it could have been better. It could have definitely been better. Of this bunch, I think it's probably the weakest. And now we get to a two-parter. Two-parter. So episodes 16 and 17. And if you all ever watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, Chris Carter and company, they do explain how they would always try to uh, schedule these episodes around this time, which is the sweeps month, okay, because we're getting down to the nitty gritty, the end of the season. So it came out on February 10th, and that's where all the advertisers are just trying to, you know, um, trying to make as much money as possible. Right after the Super Bowl, a lot of people are watching TV, and it's going down to the nitty gritty of the season. And the story is by David Duchovny and Chris Carter, and the teleplay is by Chris Carter. After three identical men are killed and their obituaries are emailed to Mulder, a mysterious CIA agent informs him and Scully that the killer is an alien bounty hunter sent to destroy the start of a colony of clones. Meanwhile, Mulder is distracted when his sister Samantha suddenly returns. So, this is where we get the beginning of a storyline that's going to go on for quite some time. And it tries to explain a little bit more of the alien conspiracy, which is the fact that these aliens are down here and the other aliens want to come and kill them. So basically, that's it. As far as I can remember, I wrote it down actually somewhere because there it is. I got it, guys. This is the whole shebang here. Okay, they want to combine human and alien DNA. They need to find a way to not be clones and colonize Earth. The alien bounty hunter is not having any of it because he feels that humanity is diluting his own race. So he's down on Earth killing all of the alien human hybrids. He's not having any of it. So that's basically what the whole mytho is right there. Look, I'll be honest with you, not a fan of Colony Part 1. Mark Snow, which is usually the VIP of most of these episodes with his music, this one he just put me to sleep. It just is so uninspired. It's one of those ones where he just goes like two notes, just like dun, dun, dun. That's it. Like that's it. For 40 minutes. So his music was putting me to sleep, and I think I did fall asleep, and I had to watch it again. The teaser, again, it's meant to be full of suspense because it shows Mulder like about to die, and then Scully comes and says, "Don't turn the water down. Keep the water cold. That's what's keeping him alive." And then the whole episode is like a flashback of how he got to where he got. So again, Scully saving his ass when he goes out, when he goes rogue. Although there are some important bits in this episode. One is that we got the start of the Russian super soldier who shows up for a whole lot of the series. He's this shape-shifting kind of T-1000 type of character for the series. It's played by Brian Thompson. And we get Samantha, okay, or is it Samantha? Played by Megan Leitch, which is Mulder's sister, who shows up, and we get a little bit more on her. And then the story just it's just a frustrating story because Mulder is with Samantha. Scully's trying to figure out what's going on with these doctors that are dying. The alien bounty hunters chasing these doctors. There's this CIA agent that we don't know if we want to trust him or not, but it ends up he's kind of like trying to play Mulder and Scully. And then the part that's the most annoying is that there's like this phone tag hell kind of bit to it where Mulder's trying to connect Scully to tell her, be careful because of this. And then Scully's trying to connect Mulder to say, be careful because of that. And they can't reach each other. And I'm like, where the hell are your cell phones? Like, they had cell phones before this in episodes. Because at first I was like, wait, maybe it's because there weren't any cell phones at the time. No, there were definitely cell phones. And if there weren't cell phones, there were beepers. So that was really annoying. That was one of the more annoying parts of the episode. So basically, it just frustrated me. But it sets up a lot of groundwork, and part two is a little bit better. Pete, what you got? Oh, let me add him to the stream. What you got? Peter Baird. We're almost done. What's Pete got to say? Or has the alien bounty hunter killed Pete? Peter? I don't know what Pete's got. Well, guys, I'm going to just continue while Pete's getting himself straight. Because then we have part two. In part two is called End Game, and then Pete, when he gets in, he can kind of just give his thoughts on the whole arc here. And I'll tell you, I like Endgame a little bit more. And Endgame is when we got our man Frank Sputnitz, which many credit as being the guy that really, really, really had a good handle on the mythology and um, really shaped it into what would eventually become the movie and everything. And just he really had a good handle on it, a little bit more than even Chris Carter and even in Duchovny. Mulder and his sister race to evade the alien bounty hunter and uncover more of the insidious conspiracy. Like we said, the whole conspiracy is that humans are trying to combine human with alien DNA, and the bounty hunter just ain't having it. Mulder's dad is an evil prick, okay, but he does get offed. David Duchovny. Oh no, he didn't get killed yet. Sorry, David Duchovny can't cry act. I did notice that. He's not a very good uh, crier on screen. Skinner and Deep Throat have an awesome fight. That's a highlight of this episode. It's cute that Mulder and Scully have keys to each other's apartment, and Samantha is possibly alive. That's what we get. We start to get evidence that Samantha may be alive, even though she is involved in the whole clone program. So there's the clone aspect to it. We think that that's Samantha in the beginning, but then we find out, hey, there's a whole bunch of Samanthas, but one of them's got to be the real Samantha. So a lot more happens in this second episode. I like it a little bit more. Mulder does eventually get all the way to the Arctic. He gets there only after Skinner is no, he gets there through other means, but then uh, Scully is worried and she wants to go after him, and that just sets up one of the best scenes where she just asks Skinner for help, and he's like, "I can't help you. My hands are tied." But as he's coming to Scully's apartment, he runs into Deep Throat, and they have a fight that's really nice. And they both beat the crap out of each other, but he does eventually get the information from uh, Deep Throat as to Mulder's whereabouts, and Scully goes and saves his little crazy ass. But so good ending. Not a very good beginning, but I like the ending of this one a little bit better. And what are your thoughts, Pete? Hopefully this time he's on. Nope, he just got knocked out. Oh my god, guys. Well, I'm gonna just move on. And I'm going to ask you guys in the audience, if you really love these episodes, let us know. Or if you really hate them. So far we've looked at the episode Irresistible, Die Hand der Verlents, however you pronounce that, the hand that wounds, Fresh Bones, and we got Colony, followed by Endgame, no relation to anything Marvel related. Oh, no, there's Pete. Hey, Peter. Oh, let me add him to the stream. There you go. Peter Baird. Peter Baird. Any thoughts on Colony or
Hey,
Endgame or both? Yes?
yeah, yeah, I watched them both being killed. But there we have the alien bounty hunter thrown in there. And then, of course, the big twist with Samantha apparently being alive. He's found his sister, except it's not, she dies, but it's okay because it's not his sister. It's great stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like part two better than part one, but it's good. I like Frank Sputnik's, whatever you pronounce his name. That's when he starts his tenure really shaping the mythology arcs, and I think he just takes it to the next level. Like he knows where to take it more than Chris Carter, even though eventually it just gets too big for everybody. But it's pretty cool. What I did appreciate is how clear the they were, because I remember watching it first run and always thinking, oh, they weren't telling us enough, they weren't telling us enough, and really they told us a lot, and they really explained what was going on, why the aliens were here, what the bounty hunters MO was. So good stuff. And then to close out tonight, guys, we got Fearful Symmetry, which is the 18th episode, and I have a soft spot for this episode, even though it does kind of fall apart towards the end. And Fearful Symmetry, we got ourselves 16 million viewers, written by Steve Jamat and directed by James Whitmore Jr. Strange things happen in a zoo that result in several deaths, including a government employee and apparently an invisible elephant. Well, let's see if Pete's still on the stream. You might as well just go, Pete, while you can. You there? Well, Pete may not be there. But I'll tell you guys, probably one of the best openings of any X Files. Really makes you scratch your head, like what the heck is going on, right? Like it looks like there's an earthquake or something, and then in the end, it ends up that it's an elephant that's invisible, and then he shows up, and that's the scene right there where he uh, reappears, and I think it's a good episode. Um, there's a little bit of the lone gunman in there, which is nice. There's Scully doing an elephant autopsy, which is extremely memorable. It does deal with making us care about these animals, so there's a little bit of a message, but I think it's kind of shoehorned in, but not as shoehorned in as the whole abduction aspect of it. Which I mean, I think they could have done better had they dealt with like animal mutilation, which is a real thing. If you ever want to see this really disgusting stuff online, look up animal mutilation, which I think Mulder does bring up. And if I'm not mistaken, they actually have actual pictures that of real animal mutilations, because I have been following that animal mutilation stuff for a very long time, so I know the pictures. Um, but it all kind of it's one of those episodes that tries to do a little too many things at once, so it tends to lose its focus a bit because of that. And so as much as I have a soft spot for it because of the opening and because of how weird it is, and there's like a talking gorilla that gets abducted, it's just a weird episode. At the same time, it's like, yeah, it tried to go places, but I don't think it really hit the mark. It's decent. It's a decent episode, you know, but not great. You there, Peter?
Yep.
What you got?
Yeah, I wasn't really all that crazy about this one. Um, Invisible animals is all cool and stuff, and it did tie into the alien aspect, but it was a little bit too much gorillas in the mist for me. Really, gorillas in the mist.
Gorillas in the mist getting abducted. Because why were they getting abducted? I think because they were pregnant, right? And I guess the aliens wanted to perform on their babies or something. But it just didn't make sense. Like the whole abduction thing is what threw me off. Because okay, so these aliens are able to go into a zoo, pinpoint a zoo on a map. In fact, they could pinpoint a zoo after traveling how many light years to get here, get an animal, do some whatever on the animal, I guess take the babies out of them, and then they can't drop the motherfucking animal back in the cage. They drop the animal back somewhere like in the middle of a road or something so that it can run wild across the street and kill a bunch of pedestrians. Like that didn't make much sense to me. Why the aliens? Usually when they abduct humans, they drop them off kind of where they were. Not always though. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe after the aliens are done, they're just like, fuck these assholes. Just drop them off anywhere. Uh, but I wish they would do a little bit better job with dropping the abductees back somewhere near civilization.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
visible.
like
Visible would help.
and invisible doesn't make sense. Like, how the hell can they find the zoo like in the middle of nowhere? Get these animals. They got all this technology to go across the fucking universe to get to a crappy ass zoo. They couldn't even go to a good zoo like the Bronx Zoo or something. And then you can't drop off the fucking animal back in its cage. Like it seems like that would be the easiest thing to do. Like just the drop off, the pickup would be the hardest. But in any case, so yeah, episode that tried to do too much. I just have a soft spot for it because I like the whole opening sequence of the with the elephant and the alien in the elephant autopsy with Scully is fucking classic. Uh, but it's definitely not one of the great X Files episodes, unlike the one that we're gonna see next week. Yeah, next week we got some good ones. Um, I think that's it, guys, for tonight. A little bit of a rough night, but better than last week. And thank you, guys. Retro reviews, as always. Let's do our if Pete's internet holds up. Let's do our watch and skip. For me, Irresistible is definitely a watch. I think it's one of the better kind of psycho killer episodes for the X Files. What do you think? Skip or watch, Pete, for Irresistible?
Definitely a watch. Just for Gillian
I agree. And I imagine this is a watch for Pete too. Episode 14. Back to back great villains. Can't really hear Pete that well, but I imagine this is a watch for Pete. Raise your hand if you think this is a watch, Pete. Or write it in the comments because your vocals are kind of disappearing. Fresh Bones for me is a skip. And because I can't get Pete's vocals here, oh, he just disappeared. It's a skip for me. I'm gonna imagine it's a skip for Pete. If we get him back for the last minute or so, we'll ask him. But given his review of it, what we could get of his review of it, I'd say that this is a skip for Pete also. And then the next one, the next two, which are the mythology episodes, Colony and Endgame, I gotta say watch, even though Colony is just really fucking boring. Pete, skip or watch for Fresh Bones? Real quick. Skip or watch? Ah, good lord. Jump in when you can. But Colony and Endgame for me, like I said, I really don't like Colony very much. I think it's slow and boring, but it does set up a whole lot of crazy shit, and you kind of gotta watch it in order for Endgame to make sense. So begrudgingly, it's a watch for Colony, but Endgame is pretty good, so I give that a watch. And I got a soft spot for Fearful Symmetry, but I gotta give it a skip. Like, it's not gonna make much of a difference in your life if you don't watch this episode. It's not that incredible. Let's see if we can get Pete for one last little word. If not, we're gonna sign off. But any last words, Pete? Skip watch, Fresh Bones, Colony Endgame, and Fearful Symmetry. Oh yeah, I don't think it's happening. Peter, you gotta talk to your landlord, man. You work using the internet. This is like beyond bad internet. This is just like, good lord. Because it makes sense to have bad internet sometimes during the peak hours. Because that happens to me sometimes. But it's 11 fucking o'clock. Not that many people online. You should be able to have decent internet. So, and you're paying for that shit. That's part of your rent. So you go and bitch that motherfucker. Well, I'm going to play a little bit of our X Files theme. If Pete comes back, he can give us some last words. But check this guy out, guys. His name is Evan Handyside. Evan Handyside. And here's his YouTube channel. youtube.com/user/Evan Lessons. Check it out. All right. And I believe that's all, y'all. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And, watch more X-Files. It's about all it's all you're going to get is this. All you're going to get is this. And I believe that's it. Peter, I love you very much, but I got to be up at 6:30, 7 o'clock tomorrow. So I'm going to end the broadcast. We'll ask him next week if what his skip and watches were for this batch of episodes. Good night, everybody. The truth is out there.